Okay, good morning. So today we're going to discuss the IFRIC one. So if I go to the IFRIC one, changes in existing decommissioning, restoration and similar liabilities. The decommissioning means removal. In May 2004, the IASB issued IFRIC one. It was developed by Interpretations Committee. Okay. So with that note, let me go through with the content. Many entities have obligation to dismantle. Dismantle means remove. The terms are little bit difficult because the technical terms are there. You may Google it and find the words meaning. Remove and restore items PPE. In this interpretation, such obligation are referred to as decommissioning, restoration, and similar liabilities under IAS 16. The cost of PPE includes the initial estimate of the cost of dismantling and removing the item. So this is important. Under the IAS 16, the cost of item PPE includes the initial estimate cost of. Initially, you estimate to the present value of the future cash flows because at the end and the cessation point of the activity, you may pay the dismantling, so the decommissioning cost. Therefore, you need to value that value as a present value today of the future cash flows. Okay, includes the initial estimation of the cost of the dismantling and removing the item at restoration site, which is located the obligation for which an entity incurs either in the terms of acquired or as a consequence of having used the item during a particular period other than produce inventories. IAS 37 contains requirement on how to measure liability. This interpretation applies to the changes of measurement of existing decommission and restoration and similar liabilities, both recognized as a part of the cost of PPE, recognized as a liability in accordance with LIAS 37. This interpretation addresses how effect of following events that change measurement of an decommissioning restoration, change in estimated outflow, resource embodied economic benefit, cash outflow should be there, a change in current market discount rate, an increased reflection of passage of time, unwinding of the interest. You are charging an interest income, sorry, interest expense. If the related asset measure using revaluation model changes in liability after liability alter the revaluation surplus, a decrease in liability shall recognize in our CI, increase in the revaluation surplus with equity. An increase in liability shall recognize P&L, except it shall recognize the other comprehensive income and reduce the revaluation surplus. These are important, huh? So shall we discuss the question paper now? Here 5 marks. Don't think that too much because these kind of questions are coming because this is not a lecture as a lecture material, but based on the past papers it have no. An entity has the excavation plant related to decommissioning liability. The excavation plant operating in 2010, January 1st. The useful life is 30 years. Its initial cost of construction was 900,000, 9 lakhs, and decommissioning cost estimated at 3 lakhs, payable in 30th year. The relevant risk-adjusted discount rate is 7% term, and the financial year end 31st December. In current year 2020, due to the enactment of new law, the entity estimate that the decommissioning liability should be increased by 5 lakh 500,000. Assume the non-current assets are recorded at cost model. You are required to pass necessary accounting entries. So firstly, you need to recognize the PPE. Initially in 2010, the PPE, the excavation plant debit 9 lakh, cash or the credit or the payable credit 9 lakh. Okay. If I will show you the ChatGPT answer, that is correct actually. You know that initial recognition, initial cost is 9 lakh, present value of decommissioning liability at the initial inception, because at the 30th year you need to pay 3 lakh. Therefore, at year 2010, you need to recognize present value of the future cash flows, PV divided equal FV divided by 1 plus R to the power minus power N. Therefore, 3 lakhs divided by 1.7, 1 plus R no, into the 30th power. This is the answer. Give me 1 minute. I will elaborate the question, right? You see that under the IFRIC interpretation, why I that mentioned that is this decommissioning liability should be a part of the PV, right? It is in line with the IS 16. You need to refer to IS 16 as well. So the initial cost is 900,000. For the decommissioning liability, how to show you? That is present value equal future value divided by 1 plus R into the power minus N. Therefore, you need to pay 300,000. The rate is 7%. You to use calculator into the 30th power. At the end of the 30th year, you are paying this much. Therefore, it is added a part of the cost to the asset. Therefore, this is the cost asset. Okay. I think that is clear for you. Liability balance 2021. Decommissioning liability, the risk adjusted 7%, 31st March due to the enacted. Right. 2022 ne වෙනස් වුනේ. Okay. A liability balance as at 31st December 2021 before change. Because here liability unwinds 7% for 12 years. Because how many years? 12 years no. 2021 12 31 ඉඳන් 2010 වෙනකන්. How many years? 12 years. 2010 මුලනේ. 2010 January, right? If I'm not mistaken, yes. 12 years. Therefore, you need to charge the interest. This is the liability. If I use the T account, 38,356ක් තමයි liability එක. But you need to charge the interest. This is a fixed one. That is why using here 38,356 into 1 plus 0.7 into 12. 12 power, this is this much. The carrying value of the liability is this much. So adding the interest as well, you need to charge the interest. Unwind means you add back interest for the 12 years because this is liability, like a loan. 86,430. But in year 2022, it is revised to 500,000. ලක්ෂ 3 ලක්ෂ 5ක් වෙලා. Here, remaining useful life already 12 years lapse. 18 years. 15 ලක්ෂ 5 බෙදීම 18. This is the new decommissioning liability. You can understand, I think. Okay. This much. Compare old present value and nil present value. Old present value, new present value, increase in the liability. There is increase in the liability. So you need to add to the increasement into the part of the PPE. This is debit by PPE, credit to the decommissioning liability as a provision. Okay, depreciation adjustment, only the entry liability is increased. Depreciation prospectively onwards. ඉදිරියට අපි මේව කරගෙන යනවා. PPE debit credit කරන decommissioning liability එක. අපන් කරන මේ increase වෙච්ච එක you need to recognize. Okay, that is the end. Okay, that's simple. Thank you.